If you clicked on this video, chances are you're looking for a fresh new indie game to play. Well, lucky for you, I made this list of suggestions with the core goal of showing off some criminally underrated games. I mean, some of these games on this list have less than 100 reviews on Steam, while others have just a few thousand. I guarantee at least one of these games you've never even heard of. I have a large variety of entirely different styles and genres, so let's get right into them. Pumpkin Jack. This game brought me back to sitting cross-legged 1 foot away from a box TV playing Crash to Insanity. It's like if Crash Bandicoot had a baby with Medieval, and then that baby had a baby with Dark Souls. Because it has a dodge roll. That's the only similarity. Pumpkin Jack is a 3D platformer that really embodies the feel of the late 90s, early 2000s mascot platformers. The music low-key slaps throughout the game, but this theme that plays when the antagonist first appears is an absolute banger. It really feels like it could have come out in the PS2 era and been a classic. The game only takes about 4 to 5 hours to beat, so it's fairly short, but that just means none of it overstays its welcome. You go from fighting little guys, to platforming, to fighting big guys, to unlocking new weapons, to minecarting, to Mario Karting, to doing little mini-games, to Fortnite double pumping. The game is fun, and the dialogue was surprisingly funny at times. The game cost $36.99 New Zealand dollars, so I do understand if you'd want to pick it up while it's on sale. That which gave chase. Imagine you are surrounded by snow, as far as the eye can see, stranded with a scientist who hired you to mush him around. To mush him? Is that how you'd say that? You're a musher, a driver of a dog sled, leading the scientist back to his cabin where he was previously stationed. On this journey, you start to go back and forth in time, not entirely sure what is going on. You're fed a story in a really strange and interesting way. I don't want to spoil anything, as I think it's an experience you must sit through yourself. But I will say the horror elements are not cheap jump scares, or really that prominent. They are more present in the environment and subtle dialogue between you and this unknown scientist. The aspect ratio of the game is locked in 4:3, even though the game's settings say it is in 16:9, which leads me to believe that the black bars are purposeful, and they do add this kind of feeling of claustrophobia and this suffocating environment. It feels like the screen is giving you as little vision as possible. The game is only a 45 to 60 minute experience, so I would understand if you don't want to spend $5 on such a short game. But hey, you pay upward of $20 to see an hour-and-a-half movie, so, you know. Anyway, you can pet the dogs and tip the sled to get berated by the scientist, so it's a 10 out of 10. Next up, we have Cyberpunk. If it were good. Deadlink is a cyberpunk-themed first-person shooter roguelite. The game starts you off as the soldier class. The soldier is equipped with a shotgun and a rocket launcher. His abilities include a grappling hook that allows you to close gaps between you and enemies, or get to these orbs that give you more heavy ammo. The grappling hook makes soldier the most mobile class. The other ability is that one Jedi mind trick Obi-Wan uses.
You want to go home and rethink your life?
I want to go home and rethink my life.
And just as you're understanding the basics of the game, after your first run, you unlock a new character, the Hunter. He can go invisible and swap places with enemies. He is equipped with a pistol and an arc cannon. Playing Hunter feels like playing Hunter from Destiny. And then lastly, you unlock the hands-down best class in the game, the Engineer from Team Fortress 2. He can place turrets and connect his little avatar tail to enemies to stun them. He uses an LMG as his primary, and is heavy as just Demo Man from Team Fortress 2. At its core, Deadlink is a movement shooter, and once you've gotten used to the movement and abilities, you have moments where you feel unstoppable. Grappling up to an orb and rocketing enemies and having the rocket launcher launch you back to get momentum, it's truly a blast. The last sentence was meant to explain that the game's in early access, but time moved on and it's now out. Full release was July 27th. There's a whole new class, there's probably a lot of other content, so it's even more worth checking out now. Convergence, a League of Legends story. Please hear me out. I love the lore of League, but hate the game. Oh, I don't have a team. Oh, typical.
Go to Shannon.
Typical. I don't have a team. Zoomed all the way in, fighting 4 people. So an indie game based on the League of Legends characters is perfect. In this game, if I make a mistake, I won't be told to kill myself or asked for my home address. In the game, you play as Echo and are based in Zorn. The game is a Metroidvania and does a really good job at integrating the "wow, I can't go there yet" mechanic. The main ability Echo has under his belt is a rewind. If you get hit, you can rewind 1 second and instantly parry what would have been a fatal hit. You then unlock a whole assortment of other abilities that can all be comboed together, almost like you're playing Echo in League. Please don't leave. The platforming cleverly has the player use all these abilities in harmony to satisfyingly get from point A to point B. And the combat is pretty fun too. Chaining all your abilities together and your normal attacks feels really good. You can progressively unlock new combat abilities and essentially Hollow Knight charms. This game was overall a really fun and surprisingly well-rounded Metroidvania, and the fact that it has the League of Legends IP attached to it leaves me dumbfounded that it only has 415 reviews on Steam. A little pricey, but maybe pick it up in a sale or something. Roboquest will make you feel like Baymax on speed. You glide through the environment with ease, except for when you don't, and then you have to do a quick time event to escape. The game has a plethora of cool weapons and a large amount of progression to build outside of runs. And 5 playable characters, all with unique abilities. You have these rails throughout the levels that you can grind like Sonic to make traversing the level that much smoother. The level design feels like they are made to make you feel the speed. You unlock power-ups throughout your run, and you can upgrade weapons if you find one you just can't bear to leave behind. Also, it has multiplayer, so that's pretty neat for an FPS roguelite. Have you ever been playing Binding of Isaac and had a strong urge to jump on someone's head? Well, boy do I have the game for you. Voidigo is a roguelite bullet hell game that focuses strongly on its boss fights. The boss will spawn pretty early into the round, but will have its health bar barred off until you destroy all the beacons around the map. However, the boss will continue to roam from room to room while you are still clearing each level. I found this game through a Twitter thread back in December 2021, and it was still in early access, and even back then it blew me away. It already felt very fleshed out, and I'd even forget it was early access sometimes while playing. Fast forward to now, and I tried the game again, and there is a shit ton of new content, and the game is officially released as of June 2023. The game includes multiple characters that have their own unique traits and starting weapons, a fun mix of weapons to find in each run, and some cool perks to collect along the way that make you feel like you're playing Risk of Rain 2. The game feels very similar to Enter the Gungeon, except instead of a dodge roll, you have a jump. And if you land on an enemy's head, you do damage to them, and can incapacitate them if they're small enough. If you're a fan of roguelites, I highly recommend this game. It doesn't nearly get enough attention, especially for how polished and fun it is. Have you ever thought, hey, I want to play a Legend of Zelda dungeon, but in first person, and also with migraine-inducing visuals? Well, Mortal Sin might be right up your alley. It has striking visuals, a surprisingly in-depth melee system, and a shit ton of classes, especially for a game in early access. The game is developed by a single developer, which is super impressive. The game has a class for everyone. You want to feel like Guts from Berserk? Gotcha. You want to be a Beyblade? Yep. Axes, swords, maces and shields. A sick mage class that has cool as shit combos? The boss fights are cool and you chop off limbs based on where you swing. I highly recommend this game if you like roguelikes and dungeon crawlers. It's a perfect marriage. Speaking of dungeon crawlers, Bleak Sword DX is a criminally underrated 2.5D hack-and-slash game with some of the most unique visuals I have ever experienced in a video game. You are plopped into these small areas that almost look like a diorama you'd make in school. Once you clear a level, you get XP and a chance to pick up an item. Items can be consumables or permanent stat upgrades. Once you get enough XP, you level up and are allowed to choose between either health, armor, or attack damage. So it kinda feels like min-maxing a Dark Souls character. You have a dodge roll and a parry, and a few variations of attacks. There is a decent amount of variation between enemies, and even a horseback level, some cool bosses, and a few other modes. Overall a super fun game, and it seemed to fly under the radar since its release back in June. Do you need a game to fill the void of sadness you have after the recent Silksong delay? Well, Haiku the Robot is a wonderful Metroidvania with beautiful pixel art visuals that was all made by one single person. The game has everything you'd want coming from Hollow Knight. It has platforming, secrets, a large map to explore, some cool boss fights, and even charms. All in all, Haiku the Robot is definitely worth your time and money if you're a fan of Metroidvanias. Since Silksong is never coming out, I'll give you another Metroidvania. Ever wanted to be a little slime that takes their victims' skulls and wears them? Zapling Bygone may just be your game. The animation of this game feels like an Adult Swim or Cartoon Network program. The opening cutscene and comic strips you find along the way have a really cool style and just feels like an old cartoon. You can wear the skulls of your enemies that have specific slots for charms that buff the little Zapling. And look at this little bench you can sit on. Wonder where I've seen that before. The inspiration from Hollow Knight bleeds through in the boss fights. I mean, look at this. And this fight feels a lot like Mantis Lord's, only in this fight you don't attack the boss, you just have to focus on dodging while their health bar depletes over time. The game is super fun, and it fills that Hollow Knight / Silksong hole. It's developed by a solo developer, and it's just criminally underrated. I mean, seriously, it has 77 reviews on Steam. If you love Lovecraftian horror and boomer shooters, you will love Forgive Me Father. This game is like a Lovecraftian Doom. It has all the mechanics and quirks of a good boomer shooter, much like Dusk. The game has a nice variety of weapons, with each having upgradable variants through a large skill tree that also allows you to upgrade your abilities, health, and shielding. Speaking of abilities, there are two characters you can choose from, a journalist or a priest, each having 4 abilities unique to that character. The game has secrets like Doom and Dusk, and gives you a completionist percentage at the end of each level. They are also releasing a second game sometime in the future. Have you ever felt like you're playing Michelangelo's David in video game form? Like you're playing someone's magnum opus? This is how I felt playing the Master's Pupil. I found this game prior to launch through a TikTok the creator made, explaining that he had spent 7 years hand painting every asset for the game. I don't want to show off too much of the game, as it truly is a visual spectacle to experience, but it is a puzzle game akin to Limbo that explores the life and works of painter Claude Monet. The game is currently at 49 reviews, but 100% positive on Steam. Hopefully you've found a new game to check out through this video. I'll have a link in the description to all the game's Steam pages and other socials. If you enjoyed the video and want more suggestions, I did have a lot of games that didn't quite make this video that I still want to talk about, so let me know if you want more.